It is March 7th, 2022. This is Roqe. She is an Iranian singer, songwriter, dancer, and recording artist who grew up in Australia and is now doing something groundbreaking in Dubai. Layla Kardan set out on a mission to empower women, break regional stereotypes, push boundaries, and she's doing all of that with the creation of a dazzling new cabaret she's opened in the UAE. It's called Papillon, and it's a dinner theater experience in the old European burlesque tradition, but updated and with a Middle Eastern style and thought-provoking performances, and it is a hit that has been profiled everywhere from Vogue to Harper's Bazaar. Layla Kardan joins us from Dubai. This is Conversations from, to, and about the Iranian diaspora. I'm Jian Ghomeshi. This is Roqe. Hi there, welcome to episode 170 of Roqe. I was laughing to myself as I said diaspora.
You did it again.
No, I said diaspora.
Oh, did you? Okay, sorry.
You weren't even listening to me just do the intro?
I zoned
off
out.
to a great start. It's so hard for me after diaspora for almost 2 years now to segue to the... Like sadly, the correct way.
It's like a breakup.
It really is. It really is. I'm breaking up with my former way of saying diaspora to diaspora. Hope you're keeping well wherever you're tuning in from around the world. Hello to you from Toronto, Canada. Welcome to Roqe. Salam Dustan Aziz. Durud bar Shoma. Hello to the fabulous Kian.
Hi, Jian.
Hello, Gurvishaya.
Hi, Aziz.
Hello, Captain Reza.
Hello, sir.
Layla Kardan in Dubai, coming up in a few moments. A groundbreaking new cabaret experience she's created. It's just a really interesting story too. Not only she had a good corporate job, like you, Kian,
and she just left.
Well, here's your inspiration. You've flirted with the idea of leaving the corporate world. She was doing really well, and then wanted to pursue her passions, and so here she is in Dubai, and then creates this provocative cabaret, and it's no small feat. I mean, there's a lot of investment, a lot of thought, a lot of people who've been behind this thing, and it's a success so far. It only opened I think a couple of months ago, and I got the chance to see it when I was in Dubai, and so I'm excited to have Layla on the show and to talk about both her mission and what she has accomplished. Mission accomplished. Thank you. And before the end of the show, we want to talk a little bit about Ukraine again and that situation and how it resonates for Iranians. We'd be remiss if we don't remember the people of Ukraine. We'll get to that. But first, I know that Reza he's got like a muzzle on. It's like a heavy COVID mask, and it's because you're sick again?
It's because I just have a bit of a sniffle that started last night.
The last time you had a bit of a sniffle, the entire team was out for 2 months.
Thanks a lot.
No, that was Kian.
Absolutely not.
That absolutely was Kian. I don't think he's responsible for that one. But this time, I called Jian. I said, John, I can do the show over the phone if you want. I don't have to come in right now. How do you feel about this? It's like
please come in and sit next to Shaya. Yeah, that's what I said.
Pretty much. It's like, wear a mask, come in, you'll be fine. So here I am. But the Tylenols are kicking in, so I don't think I'll be talking much.
Well, you don't have first
Finally,
of all,
my prayers have been answered.
Son of a gun. Do we have letters today? Because I don't think I can do.
You're supposed to be directing the show, by the way. I mean, I like how we've just given that up. We're just, it's just a matter of whether you can make it through the conversation. But I already feel like I've contracted whatever it was that you have.
You see, that's why I didn't want to come in. That is the reason I called. I should have texted because then I could have had evidence, right? You see, he denies it now. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Careful, Shaya.
Yeah.
Shaya Jun Aziz.
Azam.
And we actually, Savi Roham, because you might be part of this conversation we have coming up. So Savi Roham is it looks like an infirmary ward again. Look at these guys with their masks on, and we just can't quit the COVID era. We can't. Hi Roham, how are you?
Hello.
All right.
It's just cautionary sitting next to Reza have masks.
Yeah.
Hey,
Reza, what have you been up to that you got a cold again?
Last night I was out with a couple of friends, drinking and
Oh boy. So you're
running
not
around in
sick.
the
You're
cold.
hungover.
No.
Okay.
I went outside. I wasn't wearing much, so we was standing outside.
What are you, a
having
teenager?
smoke.
Hasn't your mom told you? لخت میری بیرون?
Exactly. این چیه؟ مامان من جلو in front of everybody. She's like, you go outside naked, لخت میری بیرون دیگه.
That's my favorite. That's one of my favorite Persianisms to say. Look, to translate for our non-Iranian friends listening, or it literally means like,
Naked.
why are you going out naked? And it's like, Mom, I've got a jacket on. Look, rafti birun mazam. It's very. That's Persian caring.
That's
That
really
means she
caring.
cares.
Pretty much.
Why are you out there naked? Well, you clearly. I'm now convinced you've brought this on yourself somehow. And may I just say that your buddy over there, Shaya, yesterday, Shaya and I were supposed to, we had this plan for like a week. We've had this plan of, we were going to write some music together, like jam yesterday. And Shaya had even said, I will make you some brunch and then we can, And then so Saturday night I go to bed going, tomorrow I'm going to get up and Shai and I are going to jam. So I get up and I see there's a message from Shaya at like 4:51 a.m. Right? He's left me a message at 5 a.m. and it's just, hi Azizam, I think I am I am hangover tomorrow.
I was sure that I am gonna be hangover.
Yeah.
Hungover.
Hungover.
Well, yeah, I'm going to have a hangover. You can't say I am hangover.
Okay.
You can, but it's
I'm
it's
hungover.
Yeah, I'm gonna be hungover. Yeah. So anyway, everybody had a great. Apparently,
It must have been a good weekend.
Yeah, they're running around Lucht and drinking.
Being merry.
Running
You know
around.
what? You paid for it. You got what
it's
you.
an eyes wide shut
getting
party.
What?
What did you get up to this weekend? You're tired too.
What did I do? I don't know. I went to a art party. Parties are a thing again. Like actually public events.
That's what it is. I think everybody's so eager to
there
get
was
out.
Some Miami artist was having a party and exhibiting his work. And
I saw on Instagram you were spray painting.
He had a canvas and he asked all the guests to kind of do their own thing, and it was kind of fun. Yeah.
Who knew that the artsy one would be Keon? The four people in here.
These guys are getting hungover, shooting up drugs. I don't know what. And I go to art
God knows
parties.
what they're getting up to. Messages at 4:51 a.m.
Those are all the things
am
Keon
hangover.
should do.
Yeah, really. What's wrong with this picture?
We're coming to you on rookmedia.com. It's there that you can link to all of our platforms. We are on our ongoing mission to build a new audiovisual encyclopedia of Iranian diaspora identity. We're on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Instagram, Castbox. If you'd like to see some visuals with Rook, switch over to YouTube right now. And if you like your Rook descriptions and bulletins in English and in Persian, check us out on Telegram. I mentioned Castbox. Savi Roham knows this because Savi Roham oversees the stats, the analytics, the numbers. Did you guys know our audience in Iran for Rook? But recently, by the way, we haven't hit our 2-year mark yet, which will be in April. But recently, we surpassed 2.5 million downloads of our program cumulatively over the course of the last year and 10 months. But we're pretty proud of that. 2.5 million is nothing to be to sniff at. But our audience in Iran has grown so much so that our top cities. Tehran was always up there, right? It was always like Toronto, LA, Vancouver, Sydney, Tehran, But now some other Iranian cities have joined our top urban centers who are listening to Rook in English.
What kind of cities?
Well, now I'm not going to ask Roham, but can you guess if Tehran is number 1, can you guess what number 2 is and number 3? of audiences listening to Roqe in Iran in the thousands in each city.
I'm going to say what I'd like it to be. If it's Shiraz, I'm totally going to take credit for it. But I think it's going to be...
You think that there's people listening in Shiraz because they're like, that's our boy.
That's right, yes.
Reza.
Very much. Represent.
Imagine this guy. Okay, so you would hope that it was Shiraz.
I would
what
hope
do you
that
think it is?
But I think it would be Tabriz.
And then what?
Oh, sorry, Mashhad. Mashhad and then Tabriz.
Okay. What do you think, Shaya?
I think Mashhad and I don't know, Quiche maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Kian, what do you think?
I don't know. Mashhad number 1, Tehran number 2.
Okay. Well, Tehran's number 1.
Oh, they are. Okay.
No, Tehran.
Oh, I don't know.
I started with Tehran as number 1.
So, Kian, there's a podcast.
I'll go get a coffee.
Okay. After Tehran, the top cities listening to Roqe in Iran are in fact Mashhad and Tabriz.
No way.
Yes.
I was right.
You were right. Wow. But I tell you,
Tylenol,
I get so energized by this. Just the idea. First of all, we're doing the show in English. You know, we never, when we launched Roqe Media and you know, we aspired to a global audience, I never really thought that would include Iran. I mean, I knew that there'd be some people in Tehran, some urban, you know, English speaking, but for it to have grown the way it has, and to continue growing, I mean, it's like literally over 30% of our audience now. As our audience grows, it's really exciting. And for some reason, I put Tabriz and Mashhad in a different category. Like I think, okay, Tehran, but you know that somebody's in Tabriz, and it's great. Anyway, hi to you folks who are out there in Tabriz and Mashhad. Thank you for listening. And
Hi.
And where is and where are the Shirazis? despite the star power
No
of
love
Reza.
for Shiraz.
It's not just Reza. Shaya is from Shiraz. I'm from
that's
Shiraz.
right.
He's from
That's right.
Ram
The
is from
whole-
Shiraz
the
too,
whole-
by the way.
The whole team is from Shiraz, but we have nobody. We have actually my mom is from Tabriz, so that explains
there you
that.
go. Represent.
Family's from Tehran, so yeah. I mean, I've got a super piece from Mashhad. You know,
It's a
The-
true diaspora.
where are they? Where are you? You Shirazis are. I mean, I think Shiraz is on the
They are
list. But
partying actually. So I'm just saying.
that's right.
All
yes.
hungover.
They are probably in Toronto.
Yeah. Thank you, Sabi Roham. I'm starting to regret that we have for giving Roham a mic. All right. Roqemedia.com, by the way, is our new updated website. It's like Netflix, but you don't have to pay for it. All the episodes are there. You can scroll across all the different programs. Roqemedia.com, where you can also become a subscriber and a patron of our show. We crowdsource how we do things here. So for $5, $10, $25 a month, you can become a patron of Roqe. Just go to the Support Us button at roqemedia.com. Let's get to our featured guest, Sabi Roham, Captain Reza Gubishaya, and the fabulous Kian. See you on the other side. If you plan to visit Dubai these days, you may want to make sure you don't miss a groundbreaking new cabaret show, dinner and theater in the old European burlesque tradition, but updated and with a Middle Eastern style, you might say. It's called Papillon. And the star of the show happens to also be the creator and producer of the whole project. She's an Iranian-Australian singer, songwriter, dancer, and creative force named Layla Kardan. She also happens to be a recording artist. Take a listen to this.
She ebbs and flows, knows exactly where to go, can make it through it all. She's her own, never silent, lays it all out, breaks the quiet. Held down, now she grows tall. She'll never lose what she's been through. God is the view. She can see all that she feels. God is real. Walk tall.
Yes, a little taste of the song Goddess, released not too long ago, written and recorded by my featured guest today, Layla Kardan. Layla was born in Belgium And raised in Sydney, Australia, she dutifully got her BA in economics and her master's in international trading and worked in the corporate world until she decided to pursue her dream of being an artist. Layla established herself as a recording artist independently and released her first album, Saved, in 2018. Layla writes about love, life, and personal encounters. She celebrates her Iranian background by using Persian instruments in her music and adopting Middle Eastern elements in her videos. She also considers herself a global citizen with a mission to break regional stereotypes and push boundaries. And that's where her dazzling new cabaret comes in. She recently opened Papillon in Dubai, a dinner theater experience that includes song, provocative dance routines, and thoughtful and thought-provoking performances designed by the award-winning choreographer Denise Faye, along with French Mediterranean cuisine. And right now, Layla Kardan joins me from Dubai, UAE. Hello.
Hello, Jian. How are you?
I'm very happy to talk to you. I know how busy you are with running the show, performing in it, overseeing the whole operation. Thank you for making the time to do this. I also know you just got married on top of all that, so we really appreciate you coming on the program.
Thank you so much for having me, and what a generous and beautiful introduction that was.
You know, it's funny when it comes to you. A friend introduced us a while back, and when the first message I left you, I was speaking in Persian, and I was apologizing in Persian, saying, sorry, my Persian isn't the ideal. I hope you'll understand it. Then you left a message back saying, no, English is great. I'm actually more comfortable in English, and because I had just heard this Persian singer Layla Kardan. I didn't know you're also a kid of the diaspora.
I am indeed, and actually I'm always embarrassed when I do interviews in Farsi, because whilst I'm very proud of my heritage and my Iranian culture and everything that has influenced me, regrettably my Farsi is not the strongest. I never lived in Iran. I've lived outside all my life, and I have 3 sisters and we all speak English, and my parents, as much as they try, we've always just spoken English at home. And so I struggle, and I always feel like I don't have a grasp on the vocabulary and I can't express myself, and I just feel like a bit of a dummy. So when you said that the interview is in English and that you prefer to speak English, I was more comfortable as well. So happy
I hear you,
happy
sister.
that we're having this interview in English.
I hear you on all of that, and it's somehow heartwarming. It's the first time I was interviewing Irfan too, and I hadn't met him or gotten to know him yet, and I thought, oh, he's this Persian rapper guy who's like super Irani, and then turns out he's like a kid from California, You're so like,
but by the way, Irfan's Farsi, he's like, speaks Shakespearean.
I know.
He's so eloquent.
But to be fair to us,
Farsi and English.
But he grew up there. To be fair to us, I mean, he spent some time there. So,
and he's also a wordsmith, right? I mean,
right.
That's what he does. Yeah,
right. You grew up dancing and performing in theater productions, but didn't think you would or could have a career as an artist. You were in the corporate world for a decade. What was the turning point for you?
I think we all go through the kind of when we're coming into our skin as like young adults, you want to please your parents and do what's right or what's perceived as right in society. I always wanted to be a singer. I had it was so much in my heart, but I felt that I never really had the tools or the encouragement or the support to take it forward. Even though I had grew up on stage, I mean, I played the piano. I was a classical ballerina for 13 years. I performed as, the lead in a lot of theater productions. But when it came to singing, my father was very much against it. So, I took the safe route and pleased the parents and everyone else in society, until I got to a point in my life where I realized that, if I don't live a life of truth and if I don't pursue what really makes me happy, then I'm going to live a life of regret and great unhappiness, and, I'll be dissatisfied. And I really think of life as such a beautiful gift and an opportunity to share and serve and do all the things that you love. And I think passion is a big driver. I mean, it is certainly for me. And if I'm not passionate about what I'm doing, then I'm kind of feeling dead on the inside. So it really got to a point where I wasn't happy and I was a bit numb, and life circumstances made me feel like I was definitely not headed in the right path. And
what was your corporate gig?
I was working in strategy. I mean, I worked in different jobs, but my background was business development, marketing, and strategy. So I worked across different industries.
Let me guess, you were probably good at your job too, right?
Yeah, but it was great actually, and
yeah.
I was making a lot of money. So by taking the leap of going into something so unknown, where I had no formal vocal training and I had no support and I didn't know what I was going to do, but all I knew was that if I didn't do this, I would suffocate on music that was in my heart, and words that were in my heart, and poetry that was in my heart, and I would die because I was just so feeling stifled. And if I didn't take that plunge and explore, then I would always regret it. And so I was kind of like do or die situation. Not that I was dying, but
Right,
that's a bit dramatic,
right.
But I am an artist, so you know how it is.
Layla, when you talk about going against social expectations, societal expectations, and family expectations to independently establish yourself as a performer and a recording artist, especially in a region like the Middle East, was the societal expectation part harder or the parental pressure?
I mean, my mom's cool. If I had insisted that I wanted to pursue a career in music, she probably would have been happy for me. But it was more the pressure I had put on myself to be a good daughter and an exemplary young girl, because of this it's not really, I don't know where it came from, but in my mind, my father used to say it, and everyone else used to say, good girls are not entertainers, and a girl from your background and your family standing doesn't entertain people. So it was kind of for me, in my mind, I had been brainwashed to believe that if I was an entertainer, I would be less than. And I didn't want to be. I wanted to be strong and powerful, until I came to my senses and understood, if you have a gift of music and poetry, then you have actually so much more influence than just doing strategy for a corporation, which, by the way, is also a very respectable job. But sure. I just felt like with what I had to say, I would have more reach as an artist than I would working in a corporation.
When you talk about shedding, to quote you, shedding some of your conditioning as a Middle Eastern woman to explore your artistry, tell me more about that. What do you think of when you think about the conditioning of a Middle Eastern woman?
I come from a very progressive family, and I come from a very open-minded family, and my parents are both European educated. It's not like they're so Sharqi, they're so Iranian that they don't. I'm not trying to say that I grew up in such a in a family where I was so held back.
Right.
But there's a lot of this subliminal stuff where it's like, oh, تو دختری مثلا این کارو باید بکنی, you have to be sure to behave in a certain way, and you shouldn't be provocative, and you shouldn't be sensual, and you shouldn't be it's giving off the wrong message, and so. And I grew up in a family where etiquette, maybe it wasn't religious beliefs or anything, but it was a lot of etiquette was imposed on us, and how you should behave as a young lady, and how you should speak, and when you should speak, and all of these things. So, and also just generally, as a Middle Eastern woman, we all know that, it's not encouraged for women to be performers. It's not encouraged for them to be actors or singers or dancers at all, because of the perception of what those careers kind of stand for, the things that go along with them being, quote unquote, dirty industries, which I'm not saying is true or not true, but I mean, everything in life is a choice, right? I mean, you can be in a dirty industry if you're in banking, but just that whole perception of what comes along with being an entertainer. And then also things like, like a good girl gets married and, at a certain age and then has a family and tends to her family and, best for her not to work and stay home with the family. And like all of this sort of stereotypical ideals of a woman, which like, and I, all due respect, I have sisters who have chosen that path, and hats off to them. I think they're amazing and they're doing an amazing job, and their children are amazing, and the family unit is strong, and I think it's great, but I don't think that it should be imposed on everyone. So it took me a long time to say like, okay, it doesn't mean that I'm a bad person or like a bad girl, or however you want to say it, if I pursue a career in music and be an entertainer, even if till today I still sense sometimes there is a general disrespect towards me when I perform, mainly from Middle Eastern people, not from Western people at all. I still stand true that it's like I'm so much more complete as a person and so free, and I'm trying to break these conventional ideals for a woman by being a performer and also being smart and being a businesswoman and being a multitude of things. Just because I'm a singer, it doesn't mean that I can't be a mother, and I can't be I can't tend to my children, and I can't be a good wife, and I can't nurture my family. I don't think it's these things are exclusive of each other.
So let me ask you, I mean, you, in terms of those expectations and those stereotypes, it certainly is different in the Middle East from the West or from a place like Australia where you grew up. What brought you to Dubai? Why not stay in Australia?
I know it's a good question, because, but I mean, when I moved to Dubai, I hadn't started my music career, and I moved here because my father was here, and I was actually en route to London. I wanted to explore music options there and just like study music and get some good vocal training. And my father was living in Dubai at the time, and I stopped over to see him, and then circumstances and his health made me stay in Dubai. And then I started working, and I was working here. And if you're going to wait to like move to LA or Australia where it's more progressive and people have an open mind towards like females being a singer or whatever, well, then it would have never have happened, just because I think like, especially now in this digital age, you don't have to be in those places to make it happen. And actually, I'm very happy that I launched my music career in Dubai, even with all of the hardship that I had to go through with, just people's opinions and family objections and all of that. I had first of all, I was in the right place at the right time, as a Middle Eastern looking girl, but, singing in English without an accent. I got to do a lot of jobs here, and I got the support of all the major publications, from Vogue to Harper's Bazaar to GQ, and they'd book me at their big fashion events. And, it was great for me because I believe that if I was in LA, I wouldn't have the same opportunities, or even in Australia. So, it's a good question. If I'm Australian, I could have stayed there and done it, but I was here and my life was here. So, I mean, uprooting myself didn't make sense.
So it's groundbreaking enough to, I mean, in the context of everything you've talked about, to be this independent recording artist and to be doing these fashion events and all that you were doing. It's next level to start this cabaret. Let's talk about Papillon, your cabaret, which I had the great fortune of being able to see last month in Dubai. It's most definitely in sync with your mission of wanting to break stereotypes and generalizations in the Middle East and about Middle Eastern women. What was the precipitant? Here you are, this recording artist. You don't have to do this cabaret. What was the precipitant for you wanting to do this?
I've always wanted to do it from a young age because of my love for theater and my love for the stage. And when COVID happened, a lot of my performance opportunities were gone. And that's where I was, making my money as an artist, live performances. And I realized, how fickle you can be as an artist. And I just wanted to diversify my offering as an artist and also be able to express myself through different mediums. And I had this opportunity where I was approached by the Westin Hotel, and they mentioned that, there was like a space that they wanted me to take over and make a jazz club. And whilst I'm the biggest fan of jazz, I just felt like it would be better to do kind of like a dinner show with a cabaret. And so, it's been something I've always wanted and loved and dreamed of doing. The part where I was trying to break boundaries wasn't really like an intentional thing. I guess it's always somewhere in my psyche. I'm always trying to do things that are a bit risque and different.
Right.
But when it came to the cabaret, I just really wanted to. It was an ode to old cabaret,
yes,
with a fresh take and a sort of modern delivery of certain numbers. And I wanted to just, express myself in this way. And like surprisingly, Dubai, where the cabaret is and where I live, has become a lot more open. And so seems like I'm really pushing the boundaries, and I am, but also like they've become a lot more open and people are very receptive because also, if I may say so, the art that we put on the stage is not vulgar.
No.
It is risque, but it's artistic. And the dancers that I've so carefully hand selected are all characters and they're artists, and none of the girls that I have on stage are dolly girls. Even if they dance sexy and risque, they have personality.
Absolutely. Let me get to the content. I want to take two steps back because you're right. It's certainly not vulgar, and it's certainly, I mean, even by Western standards, it's not even that provocative, but it is bold.
No.
It's not just bold in terms of the content for Dubai, but bold that you thought you could do all of this. I mean, to create something that had not been done in the UAE, creating a new cabaret, a theater show, a business, but also to do so whilst engaging in potentially taboo or frowned upon ideas and practices in a Muslim country. That's a whole other level of pressure. Did you feel trepidation about going ahead with this? Did you think, oh boy,
No. I did think that maybe somewhere along the line I'm going to get a slap on the wrist, but I wasn't nervous or worried at all because I really believe in what I'm doing and I went forward with full conviction. I feel like fear and guilt are the biggest waste of emotion. And I didn't put any focus into that. Even if I had a hint of it in my subconscious, I just blocked it out because I think that when you focus on those things, you attract it. And I really think that the region's ready.
Did anybody try and dissuade you? Did anybody say, Aziz Amdi, I don't think this is a good idea,
People always try to, but I'm very hard-headed. And I had great support from my partner, who's, my business partner, but also my fiance, who we created this brand together from scratch. We created from the name to the branding. And, I think as a woman, when you have this, despite the fact that I'm a very strong woman, any kind of entrepreneurial activity takes a lot of grit and gumption and sorry for the expression, but balls, and I had all the grit and everything and the work ethic, but I also had a backbone, which was my fiance, who's really strong in the F&B space. He has other places. So it was like, we
F&B space?
Really working.
What's that?
Sorry, he has F&B, food and beverage.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, so he has restaurants because we developed everything. It wasn't just the stage. We developed the restaurant elements, the menu.
Well, let me ask you. You first of all, I should just note that Papillon opened its doors, as you say, at the Westin Dubai Beach Resort and Marina in November, just a few months ago. You wanted this to be, as you've just been beginning to describe, a multi-sensory experience. Tell me what that means, multisensory.
So I think there's a lot of places where you go where you have a dining experience. I mean, especially in Dubai now with COVID and like not having the clubs, so that a lot of people as an afterthought will just put like a live music setup, but then it doesn't match the cuisine and the venue, and the sound is poor, and it doesn't really, like, you're not immersed. So the space that we've designed, and the designer is actually an Iranian designer. His name is Roham Shamekh. He's amazing. He designed, I always like to work with Iranians. He designed the space, and it's like, it's kind of, it's a warm, intimate space. So you're not distracted by any outside sounds. We've hand selected the music playlist, which is very cabaret at the beginning and then goes into a disco vibe. Mm-hmm. The food is a fine French Mediterranean cuisine, which matches what you see on stage. The dancers are on stage, but they also come through the audience as well. So
it's a really beautiful space, extremely high ceilings, and just it's a very chic. I guess nobody would expect anything different in Dubai next to the Westin there, but it's clear that you kind of went all out. I mean, your head chef brought his team over from a Michelin star restaurant in Taipei. You're working with an internationally acclaimed choreographer, Denise Faye, I mentioned. There's this sense that you really didn't want to do this in any kind of half-ass way, but that also raises the stakes, right? Like you're investing a lot in something that is new without even knowing that it's going to work. I mean, now you do, but when before you launched, right?
I mean, there's obviously risk in everything you do in life, but I've been in the performance space a long time here. I have a following. We have great partners with the Westin. Like, the support that we have from them is great. We've done our due diligence. I mean, Dubai is a very transient place. We're in a hotel which has, like in the vicinity of where we are, it's got three now neighboring hotels with like 400 or 500 rooms. I mean, these are all, and we're in the marina catchment where we don't have a lot of competition in terms of a cabaret space. Yes. So, these things we take into consideration. Obviously, we don't go in just blindsided with our blinkers on thinking we're going to win. But of course, in business, there's always risks. And we also considered all of those risks and were careful in our projections. So we're not worried at all. And we've had amazing reviews. And before we even opened our doors, Valentino took the space for a private event. Because of, the caliber of what we've brought to the market. There's a lot of other venues, that we could call our competitors. But, we have another Vogue event coming up. And these things are all testament to, what we've built as a group. I mean, not me individually, everyone who's been involved, is that, there is space in the market for something slightly more refined than what's already out there. Because there's a lot in Dubai, but there's not a lot where you go and you feel an emotion. It's like always just such a party vibe.
Yes,
and like people like myself, they don't really enjoy that anymore. So it's either you do dinners at home or dinners, and then we never go to the kind of theater spaces or I don't know, whatever you might call them, cabarets, because we don't like the level of entertainment there.
What were you in terms of the risque or the burlesque or whatever elements of the content? What were you expecting the reaction to the cabaret to be, and what has surprised you about reactions you've received?
Honestly, like some of the numbers, I was thinking to myself at times, I'm like, you said that, were you scared? As a joke to myself, I'd be like, oh my God, I think I'm going to go to jail. But the response has been great. We've had a lot of Emiratis and Middle Eastern people come through and be so, it's titillating. It's like exciting, and people like it because it's a kind of escapism momentarily. And again, as I repeat, it's not vulgar or grotesque. So it's not like, there is a shock value, but not in a way that is like disgusting or you feel, it's dirty, the place you're in. It's everyone comes and says like, wow, the level of performers that you have, that is such a high caliber of performers. They're incredible. And the music selection, and obviously that's got a lot to do with Denise Faye's execution of the vision that I had, and she's been amazing. Her caliber, she's worked on some of the best cabaret films like Burlesque and Nine and Chicago, and so we weren't short of the tools to create something beautiful. So the general feedback has been, wow, this is amazing, and we don't feel like we're in Dubai.
It's progressive in different ways too. I mean, you're there singing in 3 or 4 of the pieces. There's these dance moments. There's moments, as you say, that involve the audience. One of the pieces that I really liked in the cabaret that pushes buttons in a different way is 2 men dancing, and it's quite homoerotic. I mean, it's this beautiful dance they're doing with each other. So it's tell me about the curating of those scenes, the decisions around making that kind of content.
So, well, that was kind of by accident. I'm not going to say that there was any intention, but those 2 are brothers. And, in tango, it's actually quite common for 2 men to dance together. And it doesn't have any connotation or anything. It doesn't insinuate anything. It's just 2 men dancing together. And they're brothers, as I mentioned. So it was just that, he was here in town and he's an incredible performer and we wanted to have him on stage. So we worked a number where they could really, because, tango is one of the hardest dance forms. And it's not something that just, though our dancers are so skilled and amazing, it's not just something that anyone could pick up. Like, it's a specialized dance form.
Sure,
So
yeah.
The fact that those 2 could do it together. But yeah, I also do like that there's this freedom. Why should it always be a man and a woman dancing together? Or I have a scene at the beginning where there's 2 girls playing on the couch together in a really playful,
Yes.
Sensual but playful and innocent way.
It's funny that you should say they're brothers. I thought it was quite suggestive, but maybe I was drawing my own, I don't know, conclusion.
Look, I guess it would make sense that it's suggestive because there's a lot of scenes that you're like, oh, did that just happen? What does that mean? And so it might seem that was intentional. It wasn't, but I do like the message that it gives because it adds to my message of freedom and breaking boundaries and stereotypes.
Layla, it was packed when I was there in January, and you've said that it's sold out every night. I mean, how are people finding out about this so early in your run? I guess you've had a lot of good press. Is that it? Or how is the word getting around?
It's press and social media, and we don't do a lot of marketing. A lot of it's just word of mouth, and we like it that way because we want the type of people that are going to come who appreciate the arts, and typically our audience is mature and cultured and refined enough to understand that when these artists who put so much energy and work into their craft are performing on stage, they pay attention. And I'm always really proud of when the Iranians come because, like, by far they are the most polite audience and the most gracious audience.
Really?
And I always tell, because my fiance is not Iranian, and I always tell him, you see how Iranians are so cultured and like wonderful and so polite, and they always give respect and they clap and they're listening and watching intently. And he's like, okay. I'm like, look at your people.
He's Iraqi, right?
He's Iraqi, yeah. So, but he always laughs. I mean, he's a big fan of Iranians. So, I mean, and it doesn't matter where a person's from. It's who they are and what they represent. But yeah, I'm always really proud when the Iranians come, because, I appreciate them so much, and they're always so supportive of every endeavor, and they always tell me, we're proud of you. And this is like my support system and my family, and I feel stronger when they're there, and then and of course to see how gracious they are as an audience is, I'm always proud.
It's nice to hear. I've certainly heard about Iranians traveling that aren't polite, so it's nice to. But I guess that's in Thailand or somewhere
there's
else.
types, right?
Yeah.
But like I said, we have a certain type that comes to our show. They're not the types that like want to get really rowdy and crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking about Iranians, but just in general, these are kind of, artistic, cultured people who want to have a nice night out.
It's a really nice. It's. I mean, the vibe kind of helps with that. It's an elegant vibe. It's such a pleasure talking to you. It occurs to me that. I mean, yes, those Iranians are right to be proud of you. It's amazing what you've done in such a short period of time with creating this thing. But it also occurs to me that it's quite an investment in terms of grounding you to need to be there in Dubai running this cabaret. What is your long-term plan with this? I'm assuming that you're expecting you're going to need to be there in the coming years.
Of course. I mean, like any business, you have to pay attention, but I don't have to be on stage all the time. I think the audience might get sick of seeing me every season. So I'm like even just replacing myself from this week for a few months, and then I'll come back on the stage, and I'll still do a jazz night. Like I'm introducing a jazz night with my incredible live musicians. And the plan is to take it international. I mean, I think we've built a strong brand. I think it takes time, but I mean, once we get the business model right here, what we're looking to do is, open in different parts of the world, like namely Canada. Hamdan, my fiance, studied there, and he spent a lot of years there, and he loves Toronto. So
it would be
there,
great.
And I'm from,
it would be great here,
right?
It would be really good. Yeah, why not?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. And Sydney, where I'm from and I grew up, I think there's a big gap in the market for such an offering. And I don't know why, but Shanghai is calling me. But these are the long-term plans, and I think at the moment we just want to focus on building this brand more and making it a a local success, and then hopefully taking it outside. And I have always had a dream that somehow, I remember I went to the opera house, and I saw the Georgian ballet, who was just mind-blowingly beautiful. I remember watching them thinking, wow, they're such beautiful dancers, and their costumes are great, and the storytelling was great. And it made me sad that we don't have anything as Iranians, like a traveling dance with all of the beauty that we have to offer. We don't have anything to offer the West in terms of like a visual display of all our beautiful stories and urban myths, and like our tales and dance and costumes. And I remember I spoke to a friend who lives in Paris. I was like, we need to do this, we need to create this. So that's part of my long-term plan as well, is to create something beautiful for the stage. That would be a nice depiction of Iranian history and dance and fashion and tribal fabrics and things like that. So that's something I'll be working towards in the next 5 to 10 years.
Layla Kardan, it's so nice to talk to you again. Congratulations on all that you've done, and big support to you on continuing to build this and take it international. I'm sure there's a lot of people listening to this who, if not already in Dubai, are looking forward to visiting and seeing your cabaret when they're there. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, and thank you for all that you do, and this, light that you shed on the Iranians. And I think, we've, as a diaspora, it's so nice to have like a connection, even though you're on the other side of the globe. And big props to you for all that you're doing, and hats off to you. And thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks, Layla John. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye.
Layla Kardan, an Iranian-Australian singer, songwriter, dancer, and creative force, and the founder of the new Papillon cabaret in Dubai. Layla Kardan joined us from the UAE today. Microphones back on for Groovy Shaya, the fabulous Keon, and Captain Reza.
Yes, sir.
Layla Kardan. Thoughts?
It was. She's great. It's amazing. But the restaurant. Have you been to a restaurant?
To the cabaret.
To the cab. Sorry.
Spent an hour talking to Layla Kardan. Have you been to the snack bar?
That kebab joint,
Have you been to the food truck? It's a cabaret.
Excuse me.
It's a dinner theater.
How dare you, sir? How dare you?
How the fucking show here?
Have you been to this fast food place? Yes, I went to, as I explained in the interview. Yes, and before it.
What I wanted to ask was that because I know how you are with atmosphere in at restaurants and stuff. I think that it must have really made an impression on you, because I know you.
It was very cool. It's very cool. Actually, they've done a really great job of. You heard her talk about it's next to the Westin Hotel, which is a very nice hotel in Dubai, but also a very traditional, nice ornate kind of hotel. This place, though, Papillon, that's sort of connected to it. As soon as you walk in, you're transported into the vibe in there is really, really well done. As I said, really high ceilings, black curtains everywhere, real kind of opium den kind of vibes, cabaret vibe. Like it's got it really is, and it is chic, and she has this DJ playing the whole time, like before the cabaret begins, and in between there's a number of the acts come up. There's different sort of moments, and then there's a 10-minute break, and you're sort of eating your food, and so and then
it's very well crafted. It seems like.
Yeah, well, yeah. It's really. I mean, for sure, if you're going to Dubai, why not see this? I think I thought it was very interesting when she said that the Iranian audiences are the polite ones.
Yeah, that was surprising, because I thought there would be, because you said in Thailand. Well,
I was thinking Iranians I've seen anywhere else. They don't seem that polite, sadly.
Wow, they get kicked out of all places. Yeah, it was interesting. She said they're polite. Back then, when I was in Thailand, 2006.
Back to Reza's story. Let's hear all about it.
They hired me.
Enough Layla Kardan. Yeah. Let's go back to you. Go ahead, Reza.
Guys, I had this gig. They gave me a job at Disco Tony. I still remember what it was called. Disco Tony.
I went there.
The Persian disco.
The Persian disco. Now, back then it was it wasn't. Back then they didn't even let Persians in, and that's why they hired me. Because I was the one, I would dye my hair and just my eyebrows, and would wear contacts and stuff, and I spoke a little bit of English, and I would hook up with.
What color would you dye your hair?
Bleach?
White, bleach it.
Really?
Bleach. Yeah. And blue.
Let's see pictures of this.
Oh yeah, I'll show you pictures.
Was that the Slim Shady era?
That was the Slim Shady era. Yeah, those early 2000s. And then what I was doing? I had piercings, my eyebrows, my ears and stuff, and I had Russian girlfriends, so I would walk into the club with them, and I would fool these guys. until like somebody rat me out, and then they banned me from the club. But Tony, that guy
because they found out you're Persian.
Yeah,
Okay.
because
But you worked there. Then you worked there after.
So
or before?
yeah, what happened is Persians, Indians, like anybody who was not white, gotta pay the an entrance fee, right? So I wasn't paying that. I was just skipping it. When they found out, Tony, instead of like,
why did you want to go to this place?
it's hot. Like there's so many cool people there, drinks. Like there's free snacks, and that's why
I love Reza
Persians
because he is really the like Persian stereotype guy that we so. The brown people want to get in,
Yes.
but have to pay. The
have
white
to
people
pay because
it's
they don't
unbelievable.
buy drinks and snacks are free.
I've
so
seen that place. I think is it a chain now or something?
It became a chain, but
and
now
I
it's
always
closed
wonder
down.
what it's like. It's called the Persian disco or something. And
Right now it's Persian disco.
Yeah.
I don't know about now. I'm talking about back 2006,
Okay.
2005. I'm talking about. Like, this is a long time ago. But then the guy Tony, I remember he was like
is Tony Persian?
No, Tony is half American, half Thai. He's
Okay.
a kickboxer. He's got several gyms. Big ass mafia in Pattaya. Like that guy was
Okay,
scary.
yeah.
I remember like they took me to him and they were like, hey, this guy, he's been skipping. It's like, so yeah, you owe me $1,000. I'm like $1,000. The guy didn't have like a penny to my name. And then he was like, no, you can work for
You
me.
had enough money to bleach your hair.
No,
but-
I did. But I worked for him. He hired me to spot Persians.
We had an interview earlier, right? Like I'm just
I know. I was just going to apologize to Layla Kardan.
Went on
But wait a
tangent
second.
about his
Sorry.
time. Wait, what was your job
now,
at that point?
Now I'm
Sorry.
involved in the
Yes.
story. So
Yes.
your job was to identify Persians?
Persians, so that they can't get in. They have to pay entrance fee.
Oh my God. And you didn't
That's
feel
what's up.
bad about doing that?
I was 17. I needed the money, and I would get into the club for free. I was stupid.
So you would say, what would happen if you saw a Persian?
I would saw a Persian, I'd be like, come here, because I spoke English. They didn't know. Iranians didn't know I was Persian. I had blue, like I would put contacts
Oh,
and bleach my hair,
gosh.
right? So they didn't know. They would just see this kid like over there, like spotting them, like one after another. They'd be like, out, out, out. You gotta pay. And then like, oh my God, there were these guys with like socks all the way up to their ankle, and like sandals. They'd be like, "We are not Persian." I'm like, "Amu, you gotta pay that 30 baht."
You know,
That's so
it's so
messed up.
interesting that now I was in Bangkok once going to a dance club with two friends, and they at first were not going to let me in, and then they said, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Canada," and they said, "Show your identification." And when I showed that
They let
I'm
you
from
in.
Canada, they let me in.
Yeah.
So
What is it?
before
What-
that, if they thought I was like just from Iran or Middle Eastern guy or whatever, they
Yeah.
Can I understand why?
It's the image you have around the like they. I'm serious. It comes back full circle, man. I swear to God.
Like,
with
what
the
is
whole
it? What
Ukraine
do
thing
they
too.
have against Iranians? Out of curiosity.
Well, they steal. They don't pay entrance fees. They don't buy drinks. They like get hammered at home, drink their own alcohol, and then they go to the club. They buy like one beer, maybe not even, and then they cause fights, arguments, stuff like that. That's what I had to deal with. over
that's
there
the
for 8
those are the
months.
stereotypes.
Those are the stereotypes.
Just
that-
to clarify for
Yeah.
Most of them are
Not you realize you're Iranian,
Persians who are
right?
unsubscribing.
I don't care how much you bleach your hair, pal. You're right.
No, this was Thailand, guys. This was over there back
Yeah,
then.
but I lived in Thailand for 2 years, and there is also, you can find a community that they don't think Persian as like that what you describe, and yeah.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
خوش به حالت.
But I
Lived in
remember
Thailand.
but I remember you didn't allow me to come into the Tony.
You remember a guy with dyed hair who was
But
ratted
actually,
you
you know
out.
what's funny? We do actually. We've lived in Thailand at the same time.
Really?
Wow. We didn't even know.
And
each
you
other.
never crossed paths.
No.
No.
Would
Or
you
maybe
live in
you did.
Thailand?
I was in Bangkok.
He
You
was
were
in Bangkok. I was in
Pattaya.
Pattaya.
Would you live in Bangkok again, Shaya?
Of course.
Oh, you would?
Oh, 100.
Well, why are
Why?
you here?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, there's a community here, and so. But yes, I love Thailand. I
Wow.
loved. I think I might go there, like
To live.
Yeah.
one
yeah,
day,
to live. Yeah.
Oh.
Such happy.
Anyway,
people.
we had a guest
Yeah,
named
we
Layla
did.
Kardan
That's
on the
right.
show.
We
Yeah.
really did. I completely.
Oh my
it was
God.
erased.
My apologies.
Reza just.
Did you go to the
hijacked
restaurant? What?
It's the Tylenol. I swear to God.
Yeah, that's right. Reza's feeling
You
sick
realize
today.
we're not your therapist, right? Like you don't come here for therapy.
Kia, what did you make of Layla
I
Kardan?
thought she
I
was-
bet you want to go to the cabaret when you go to
I
Dubai,
really
right?
do,
Yeah,
actually. I'm going to make
Yeah.
it a point to go there. I just wanted to say how much respect I have for her. I know how it is to have a comfortable, cushy corporate job. To have the guts to leave that and do something completely uncharted and go against your family's thoughts and wishes, it's a hard thing to do. Yeah. And it's a thing that a lot of Persians face. Like a lot of our guests talk about this. It takes a lot of guts.
She's very impressively confident.
Yeah.
She's like, no, this is what I'm going to do, and I did it. And I think that's pretty cool, Shaya.
Yes.
Especially because we so often hear the inverse. The artist who can't express that ends up becoming an engineer or living the corporate life because it's ultimately safer, more security, more job security, more, and your parents are happier and whatever.
Yeah. Again, this interview has another sad
layer.
Sad layer, yeah. And which is that I remember you mentioned a couple times, like in previous episode, that when you were 5 years old and you were taken to Iran.
Yeah.
They took you to cabaret.
In Tehran.
Tehran, yes. So, always I have this imagination.
Pre-revolution. Yeah.
So this cabaret should be in Tehran, But that's a sad story.
Maybe one day.
Well, it's not even for Dubai. It's pretty racy.
That's right.
It's pretty. She's pushing the boundaries for Dubai.
Because this kind of thing is not allowed there, right? Like red light
district. It's look, it's not a red light district.
Red light
what I'm saying is that like they don't have
any other disrespectful this restaurant, the one with the prostitutes.
It's not at all. It's not at all like that. But it is very. It's provocative. It's a burlesque. It's very tastefully done, as she said. It's not, but I get the sense based on what I read about her, the whole creation, that it is anomalous for Dubai. It's a very new and edgy thing for the UAE.
Yeah.
So for Iran it would be unthinkable, right? But that is sad. That is sad, Shaya.
Yeah.
But there is stuff like that in Istanbul, though. Like cabarets in Istanbul.
What's randomly talking about Istanbul?
No, it's just sad. Like Iran is in the middle.
What medication did you take exactly?
I think I took Tylenol 3 by mistake, and I'm not even joking. At first, I thought I took regular Tylenol, but it might be.
Mute his mic from. I think you're
it
cut off
might actually have been Tylenol 3, because
I
things
swear,
are amazing.
Every
right
time,
now.
like I've known this guy for years now. I didn't know the story about being a bouncer with like blonde hair.
I don't even know why I said it on air. It's such an embarrassing story.
This is the things you've done.
Hey, you had to kick out your own people? That's so shameful.
I swear to God,
His
this
job
is Tylenol
was to
3.
send the Iranians to the
No, I didn't send them anywhere. They just had to pay like $40.
Hitler's like the sidekick. Pick out the Iranians.
But you know what? You are a very worldly guy. Like you are a guy. No, you are a guy.
If by worldly you mean he's been in every country's jail, then yeah, absolutely.
No, but he is a street smart guy. Like he has a sense of the world, and this is why, right?
Yeah.
Because he's
like in London. I don't remember exactly what he was trying to get me to like haggle with the cab driver or something. I was like, where does this come from? I get it now.
I love the idea that Reza wouldn't let Shaya into the dance club in
if that
Thailand.
actually had happened, it would have been crazy.
All right, let's talk about what's going on in the world. Okay, well, before we end the show today, as I said earlier, let's have a little bit of a chat about Ukraine. Just to mention Ukraine and to mention the Ukrainian people who are in our thoughts. Obviously, it's a devastating situation. We talked about it last week and talked about what we can possibly add to the discourse other than utter support and solidarity with the Ukrainian people. The whole thing is kind of surreal in its horror. It's such a classic tale of this unhinged strongman dictator waging war on an innocent nation, but it would probably seem less outlandish if we had not seen this type of thing before, especially as people who come from the Middle East. The idea of an imperial power attacking with the intention of annexing or disabling an entire country is not new. That's what we were talking about last week, how people of Iranian descent, including you guys, were talking about this, in terms of your own experiences or PTSD, have an empathy. Iranians feel an empathy for Ukrainians right now because the whole tragic experience of war and lives lost and bombs and civilians, it's simply not that removed from the lives Iranians have had to live in recent decades. It also, however, the Iranian experience leads to some interesting discourse for people of Iranian descent. This weekend I had a couple of debates with some Iranian folks about how we are to feel about actions being taken against Russia by the rest of the world. Actions that are, of course, intended to punish Putin, but also, or perhaps even moreover, hurt the Russian people. So, because this is something that we've often debated and we always debate when it comes to, for example, sanctions and sanctions that are in place on Iran. We have this argument, are sanctions, do sanctions really send a message to the regime, or do they end up hurting the people? And a lot of us, some of us oppose sanctions for those reasons. Some people like sanctions because of that. And I feel like for the Iranian community, it's not as clear cut, at least some of the Iranian community that I was debating this weekend, it's not as clear cut to sort of support the sanctions because even against Russia, even at a time like this, because they've seen the effects of it. But there's something else at play right now on top of that, which is the banning of Russian sports teams or athletes in major competitions. We've seen this with FIFA, where organizations now are sort of saying, we're not going to allow Russian teams to compete. We're not going to allow Russian athletes. There was a Russian singer who was supposed to sing at the Met this weekend that they canceled. So this is a question that has also come up in the Iranian community because there have been times, certainly when the regime in Iran has threatened to ban athletes, etc., and there have been times when there's been some threat of we're going to ban Iranian athletes because of something that the regime in Iran is or has done or stands for, and that issue has come up around whether we are to support this or not, because ultimately what do Iranian athletes have to do with a regime that you oppose? So I thought I would just bring this up and put it to you guys. I mean, this is not an expert conversation, but just to get your thoughts, because it was a very interesting argument to have this weekend where I talked to a couple of folks who were really passionately opposed to this idea of banning these Russian teams, because they were kind of coming from it from an Iranian perspective and saying, well, would we want to be banned? What do they have to do with the Russian leaders? What do we have against the Russian people? And I do find that in the West, more so than not, there's absolute support for any action that can be taken against Russia right now, even if that includes banning athletes, etc. So it's an interesting question for people of Iranian descent. I think it's something of a bit more of a nuanced or a unique perspective. So Reza, your thoughts on this?
Well, I look at it from this point of view. I wouldn't want like Iranian athletes to get banned, but at the same time, let's say if Iran, the government of Iran, unjustly decided to attack Bahrain, I don't know, one of the neighboring countries, attack it and claim it of one of its own, I think I'm at war now. My country is at war, and putting sanctions on me as an individual, on my people that represent my country, is part of the whole thing, is part of the war, it's part of the shenanigans. So I mean, it's sad, it's terrible, but unfortunately it's fair game, because what is the alternative? What I find the disconnect is, and I find it very fascinating, is the question that is the very question that's being asked, like by a lot of people. Like my mother was like, "Oh, why do the people have to pay the price?" I'm like, "Well, it's a pressure tactic."
Yes.
But what's funny is that they don't make that like that. That gets lost in the translation for some odd reason. Like they know that their target audience gets it, which is Putin and the government of Russia. But the audience, the actual audience that is observing this whole catastrophe taking place, they're not necessarily getting the information, every piece of information that they should.
Right.
You know?
Although the argument is, does it really matter to Putin? You know, given that probably some of this was baked in, he knows that if he invades Ukraine, there's going to be sanctions, whatever. I mean, who's really paying the price is the question that comes up, and yet it seems almost immoral to oppose sanctions against Russia right now because they're dropping bombs on Kiev, right? Like, what are you supposed to do? We got to do something, right?
It's such a complex issue. It almost feels like you can only answer it with another question, So are we supposed to, yes or no, we were going to sanction Russia? Well, if the answer is that if you don't, what if he takes over the entire Europe? So it's another question. I don't know. It's a very complex situation.
You're drawing a distinction, though, when you spoke of Iran, between a nation or a government or a regime that's actively waging a war versus a regime that we despise or we don't like or that people oppose. Let me. That's the line for you.
Yeah.
I wanted Roham in on this discussion because I know he's a big sports fan, and I don't know what your perspective is on this, Roham, but what do you think of like FIFA saying Russian teams can't participate in the lead up to the World Cup, for example?
Well, I don't think it's the only resolution or the only decision they could have done, but it's one of the best things they could have done. So I think
you support it.
Yeah.
Why?
Because it gets some pressure into Russia, and the government would get it, as Reza said, and probably gets people waking up so they know that if their government does something horrible like war, then they have to pay too. So they have to go against their government and say we don't need war. Because as I was watching the Russian cities, nobody was protesting for no war. Maybe some small
because they'll
small
be jailed.
groups.
I mean, because they'll be.
I know it's like Iran, and I saw yesterday they are checking people's phones for their tweets and everything. But people have to go against their governments.
You see this as a legitimate pressure tactic.
Yeah.
In short.
Yeah.
But would you see it the same way if it was against Iranian teams?
If we were, like Reza said, if we were in war with some country, sure, yeah. Why not?
I see. And nefarious supporting terrorists or whatever is claimed about Iran, that doesn't qualify as war.
Not really.
But it's vague. You see?
It's vague.
That's like, you're a terrorist, so we have evidence that you support blah, blah, blah. Whatever they got. But this is happening before our very own eyes.
Because it happened before, like in Bosnian War, they banned Yugoslavia from Olympics. They banned South Africa because of the apartheid government.
My issue is who gets to decide this? How many wars has the U.S. started in the Middle East? Iraq, Afghanistan. I'm sorry, why didn't they get banned from anything? Saudi Arabia is currently bombing Yemen right now. Yeah. So who gets to decide this? Are we just going to pick and choose who we want to ban? So that's my issue, and I don't think the people of a country should get punished for this. Like I just read the other day, a restaurant is gonna stop calling Moscow Mule a Moscow Mule. They're just gonna call it Mule, and restaurants are changing their name because they're getting so much hate from people just purely because they have a Russian title in it, and just stupid stuff like that. I'm like, what has humanity come to that we're just blindly punishing anyone that is Russian at this point?
That is dumb. That reminds me of the beginning of COVID when anything Asian or Chinese was discriminated
against. It's just there's so much hate. When will we learn a government does not represent the people? If that was the case, then we should receive a lot of hate because of our stupid government in Iran.
But what the Western argument would be, I mean, the American argument, say with Iraq, would be, and I fully. I just as it would probably be We thought there were weapons of mass destruction. We didn't intend to take over Iraq the way this is a Russian power play to annex Ukraine. We did, but you actually bring up a good point. I mean, where were the sanctions against? Where were the U.S. teams being banned from FIFA during that?
Whoever controls the media controls what happens. That's the reality of it.
Shaya, what do you think?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, it shows that how unfair like the system of the world is going on. Like a while before Putin start his invasion, like Biden or a lot of people said, "Oh, he's going to attack." So why they didn't sanction then? And now they sanction. I mean, it's
preemptively sanctioned.
So I mean, I think it's who decide? It's a joke, honestly.
Yeah.
But I guess so. It's interesting, Kian, because somebody was this weekend was making the argument that you were making to me, and my response would be, let's say you're right. Let's say this is completely hypocritical or a contradiction, and you're right. Who gets to decide? Absolutely, right? Does that make doing this now a bad thing, though? I mean, in other words, shouldn't the world react somehow to Russia dropping bombs on innocent people in Ukraine and trying to take over an independent country?
There's no right or wrong answer. It's just, it is what it is, right? I don't know.
So you would prefer inaction? You would let's not do anything?
I agree with the sanctioning, but I don't think like sports teams should be punished for it. Individuals should be punished for it. Like, do what you can economically to say that this isn't okay, but to make it a personal issue against the Russian people, I think that's where the problem is for me.
My question is that, like, I'm actually genuinely want to know. I want to know, is this another Syria and Palestine and Gaza? Because let's say Putin doesn't back out and decides to, no, this is mine and I'm not backing out. Okay, so let's say he even got...
Of course it is. Of course that it's another one of those.
It's not going to be
there's
over.
no end game here.
That's what I'm saying.
There's no end game. I mean, it's whatever happens, it's going to be a quagmire there for decades now. I mean, there's no question about it. The one thing that feels different about this, I mean, first of all, it's remarkable to see the way the world is rallying. It is kind of... It's both heartening and at the same time, one is overwhelmed with this sense of where were we for the Yemeni people, But this weekend, watching my football, watching the Arsenal and teams, the Premier League logo, the official logo for the British Premier League soccer is a Ukrainian flag, is supporting, which is just amazing.
Yeah.
It's wow, this world is rallying, right, in a way.
Because the media tells them to.
Well,
so if
nobody affects them directly.
But
war in Yemen doesn't affect necessarily.
No, but if the media really created outrage and got behind Yemen, people would follow.
Yes.
People.
There is something. There's something else that's happening here, though. I don't want to say this as an absolute, but it seems to me that it doesn't feel like there's more than one side in Ukraine. In other words, the Ukrainian people seem pretty united against this invasion by Russia. And oftentimes, when we've seen this type of attack on another country, you'll see that. Remember when U.S. first went into Iraq, there were some Iraqis who supported it. They were like, oh, yes. I mean, whether this was trumped up by the American media or whatever, there were Iraqis giving flowers to the American tanks. Yes, you've got an Iraqi celebrating when the maybe of Saddam came down. And then of course it turned into a disaster. But there's nothing like that here right now. I mean, maybe in the far eastern parts of Ukraine, like Crimea, there's some Russian support. But the whole country seems like they don't. There's no support for this, obviously, and that's pretty powerful. You kind of seeing people, just innocent people, in the middle of this completely unreasonable attack, right?
But I have a question.
Yeah.
If you were Russian and you know that, like, let's say in 100 years Putin would be the hero there because he expanded the Russian land. So would you pay this price that I want to be banned from sports, from all the medias, from in terms of my country gets bigger?
I think there are enough supports and enough of that mentality out there that has given Putin the courage to keep going. It's not just the fact that he's a dictator and like ruling with an iron fist.
But I think Keon's point is the most relevant one, which is that we don't know what many people in Russia are thinking because we don't know how much information they get. I mean, most Americans were sold on the idea that there's
weapons of mass
destruction in Iraq, and even what do we know about what the Russian people actually think is happening? How much information is getting in there? Obviously enough for there to be thousands of people risking their lives on the streets to protest Putin, but we don't know that part, right?
The only thing we know is that Kian is a Russian spy. That's it.
Well, my mom has a
but
little.
I was thinking about in terms of the support for Ukrainians, though. Like this part really moves me because for those folks in Ukraine who are so proud of their country or defending their heritage, defending their space, and standing up with an inferior army to these tanks that are coming in from Russia. Imagine seeing the world. Imagine seeing the British Premier League put the Ukrainian flag. And I fantasized this weekend of what it would feel like if the world were rallying around Iranians who wanted a regime change or something, and everywhere there was a flag, and it would really mean something to feel like the world has got our back. Like I think Ukrainians, if there were any, what do I know? But I mean, just talking to a couple of friends who are Ukrainian and stuff, if there were any doubts that they wanted to fight this thing, now feeling the kind of energy of the world going, we're so in awe of you guys. I mean, it's for putting up this fight.
Classic David and Goliath story. They're really out there, and who knows? Maybe they win, man. And it would be crazy if this would be the fall of Putin. Imagine, wow.
I'm really curious to get your thoughts out there. If you guys want to give us a note on any of our platforms or email us at info@roqemedia.com, especially if you're in the Iranian diaspora. If you're of Iranian descent, how this stuff resonates for you around banning, around sanctions, and how you see this. Just interested to keep this conversation going, or if you think there's any relevance to these kind of questions, info@roqemedia.com. Thanks, Roham. Savvy Roham. Did you want to say anything else?
No.
Shukra khuda.
I knew you'd be happy.
He's going through his next joke.
Listen, he's risked his life by sitting next to Reza.
Yeah, it's less risky.
Rom sitting here crossing his jokes that didn't land.
Fabulous. Keon, Groovy Shaya, Captain Reza. Get better, Captain Reza.
Thank you, sir.
And our thoughts and prayers are with you. This is Full Time for Roqe for today. For all things Roqe, check out our new and improved website, roqemedia.com, where you can see all the previous episodes. You can see programs like The Contemporary History of Iran, Unmarried Persian Girls, the Roqe Funnies, and Roqe Videos. roqemedia.com, where you can also become a patron of our program. Thanks to the amazing team who put this show together: Sabi Roham, talented Anahita, Ponta the artist, the fabulous Keon, Super Patty Saw, Ahoy Mehdad, Captain Reza, and Groovy Shaya. Thank you to all of you out there supporting us and sharing our content. Please subscribe if you've not done so already on any or all of our platforms. You can find me on Instagram at Jian Ghomeshi, and as ever, we implore you, right? Mizun Bashi.